basically it's a lot of like just terms that we use or like ideas this film introduced, which I found like funny. Number one was Gretchen says, like, you know, if your friend has been in a relationship with a guy, you can't date that guy. That's like the rules of feminism.
Ex-boyfriends are just off limits to friends. I mean, that's just like the rules of feminism.
Oh yeah, that's another good line. Yeah,
it's such a great. And the thing is, like, it reminded me. Okay, so the reason why, as I told you before, I originally captioned this or headed this "girl power," and the reason why is because if you've ever read a comprehensive book about 90s post-feminism, you'll know that it took on several forms, and one of the forms it took on was what was called power feminism, or literally girl power, and that very much centered on the idea that feminism was about. It was basically a series of rules that women had in their social interactions in order to behave properly and not step on each other's toes and things. And that was basically like an idea of feminism in the 90s that is generally considered in hindsight to be a bit silly and inchoate and probably almost anti-feminist. And obviously that line of, you know, if your friend's in a relationship, you don't date that guy. That's the rules of feminism is encapsulates that rather perfectly. So I enjoyed that little time capsule.
Yeah.
I liked the focusing on math, like women's role in mathematics. I thought was kind of fun. It was like it was more just, there wasn't really a commentary on it. It was kind of just acknowledged, which I thought was interesting because that was the line, we get twice as much funding if we've got a girl.
We can get twice as much funding if we've got a girl. So you should think about joining.
Which is kind of referencing, you know, the fact that women obviously aren't typically good at mathematics, so obviously they want to get women in there doing it.
They're not typically as good. They just don't.
Oh, sorry, yeah. That was when I said typically, I meant stereotypically. and then later on, there's the presumption that girls are bad at maths because both of the teams pick the girl when they get to choose their opponent.
We pick the girl too.
And again, it was kind of weird. I just found that interesting, mostly because the film, it doesn't really do anything to deconstruct that. It kind of just presented it. And I thought that was like one of those things where it was like, I mean, it's not a bad thing or a good thing that they didn't really deconstruct it. I just thought it was interesting that it was introduced. And then, you know, there's no real moment where, obviously, I mean, she is good at maths and that, although she's not even that good. Like, she basically just gets all the time in the world because the other girl guesses wrong. So basically, you've got, I mean, when you really break it down, at the end of it, you've got a girl who gets the question wrong.
The limit is -1.
Oh, crap. I lost.
That answer is incorrect.
And another girl who's eventually able to get the question right. Because she has so much time to think about it that she's able to ignore the fact that she was initially focusing on a boy she liked during that lesson. So actually, when you think about it, this film doesn't do a lot for women in maths.
Limits. That was the week Aaron got his haircut. Oh God, he looks so cute. Okay, focus, Katie. What was on the board behind Aaron's head?
Yeah, it doesn't, because it does imply that maths is an area in which you'll meet guys who are creepy and weird.
Oh yeah.
Tina Fey says, like, oh, all the people on the mathletics team, they haven't even talked to a girl.
Because we start in a couple weeks, and I would love to have a girl on the team, just, you know, so the team could meet a girl.
That can't be appealing for girls to talk
that's
to
true,
them.
yeah. So it's social suicide, Luke.
You can't join mathletes, it's social suicide.
Thanks, Damien.
It's social suicide, yes, as they mentioned several times. So yeah, it's that the maths thing was Tina Fey, I guess, kind of trying to say, like, oh, women should do maths and women don't do enough maths, but not really doing it as well as she could have.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then also, I mean, this is kind of a more positive, which is they look at kind of the whole idea of pretending a girl pretending to be dumb in order to get a guy.
I pretended to be bad at maths so that you'd help me.
Which obviously, I mean, you know, it's kind of, there's not really much deconstructing you can do about that. It's just a pretty obviously stupid thing, but you know.
You don't have to dumb yourself down to get guys to like you.
By the way, just before you go on to any more stuff,
that's fine.
What Tina Fey, I think, is trying to do with this movie, because she mentions this phrase, or this phrase is mentioned throughout the movie a couple of times, the phrase girl world. This is why I think in the second half of the movie it kind of stops being funny, because Tina Fey, assuming she wrote all of this, which I'm guessing she did, just feel like she's on a bit of a crusade. She's trying to stop the bitchiness and the sneakiness that affects girls in high schools, which ruins self-esteem. Obviously, actually, remember this novel. Sorry, this movie was based on a novel, which Queen Bees and Wannabes, which we said before, describes high school social cliques and the damaging effects they can have on girls. So
also, I mean, you said that was a self-help. Did you say it was a self-help book, or was it just a
non-fiction self-help book?
Yeah, okay. Well, that's interesting because, of course, one of the terms used to describe the power feminism of the 90s and early 2000s was self-help feminism, because it kind of focused on how feminism can help you be a strong, independent woman.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of relevant. Yeah.
So there's this line where she says we got to stop girl on girl crime as she tries to do so in the gymnasium scene. You know, she also says you got to stop calling each other sluts and whores, as it makes it easy for guys to call each other.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I had that written down. It's kind of, in a way, I mean, you could make an argument that that's sort of almost victim blaming.
Yes,
saying like, yeah, victim
blaming. And that's the thing. Like, it's this. It lays this this oppression, I guess, of women. Maybe oppression is too strong a word, but it's like makes it seem like it's their personal responsibility to fix it.
You all have got to stop calling each other sluts and whores. It just makes it okay for guys to call you sluts and whores.
And if they just, start behaving better, then these problems will go away. But as we know, Michael is unrealistic. This is never going to happen.
Yeah.
This movie won't change that. Girls behaving differently won't change that. The only thing that will improve women's self-esteem is
men watching Mean Girls.
Yes, or the dismantling of the patriarchal capitalist system.
Well, you're suggesting we should implement fully automated luxury gay space communism.
Yes, that is what I'm implementing.
Yeah, good.
It is like these. It's the same thing I see. The movie, this message Tina Fey's trying to push. It's the same kind of thing I see in when I hear, because I follow basketball and I follow the NFL, and sometimes I hear like black athletes or just black commentators, I guess, talk about the problems with black schools in the inner cities of America, and they're like, they talk about it as if it's the personal responsibility of black people.
Yeah.
To try and make things better for themselves. And to be fair, that's the best thing that they can do. I guess that's where their mind goes to, because it's like, we can fix this. It is a problem that we ourselves can fix, and it doesn't make them feel powerless when actually the situation is these situations in these inner city schools, black unemployment, black incarceration. It's not something that can be solved from personal responsibility.
Pulling up your bootstraps.
Exactly. It's not something
just
that
having a can-do attitude.
Yeah, exactly. That it's a system which prevents that problem from being solved, and it's the same with these women and this scene. Like, I know it's Tina Fey, I don't know if she still thinks this, but definitely the sense you do get from this movie is like, girls, if they just stop being bitchy, they can stop girl on girl crime, and people stop calling them whores and sluts and all that.
Yeah, I will say,
isn't the answer, but go on.
Yeah, I think I agree with you completely, and I was pretty much just about to make the point myself, obviously, and then you jumped in, which is fine, because but I will say, obviously, it is worth noting that it's true to say, I think, according to any feminist theorist, that women do internalize patriarchy and do act out a lot of sexist ideas themselves in a way that's obviously bad. I remember, of course, that Simone de Beauvoir, in her classic founding text for the second wave feminism, The Second Sex, she was writing in 1947. She says that women who are raised by their father tend to have more egalitarian ideas of feminism or gender than women who are raised by their mother. And she kind of intimates, maybe the problem there is that some women do internalize these ideas of sexism and spread them. And that is true. And it should be noted, of course, and that's not a controversial thing to say. However, the problem is that this film isn't just saying, that you're internalizing these patriarchal ideas and that's bad by calling each other slut and bitch and all that kind of stuff. Instead, it's literally saying, that because you're doing this, it makes it okay for guys to do this to you, and that's obviously not true. So there was, you can take kind of a bit of a good or an accurate message, not necessarily a good message, but an accurate message in terms of how obviously women do internalize patriarchal ideas and misogynistic ideas. However, that's not the reason why patriarchy. I know, I'm so good. That's not the reason why patriarchy and misogyny happen.
Yeah, it's saying this message that Tina Fey is promoting is like, women have the power, but they don't. And I guess it's not nice if you say, well, women don't actually have the power. They can't change them just by doing things better. Just like I made a comparison with African Americans. They don't actually have the power to make things better for themselves. It's the system which oppresses them. So that is.
They can make things better for themselves. They just can't stop them entirely. Yeah. And it's not, and also it's not their responsibility to make things better for themselves, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's another thing. Yeah.
Anyway, I have actually 4 problematic things I want to blast through.
Okay, go on then. Not the stuff we talked about.
Nope. Yeah. So almost none of these really are related to gender. Interesting. Well, they're kind of tangentially related to gender. Okay. So the first one is the use of the word retarded in this film.
No, I know what homeschool is. I'm not retarded.
Which it has to be said. So there's been a bit of a cultural shift where using the term retarded casually has become less appropriate. And of course, obviously, people still do use it. And in that sense, you could just say, well, it's being accurate. But I think it happens twice. A character uses the word retarded so casually is because obviously back in those days, it was not considered as taboo.
Here's the thing. I'm fine with it, even though the culture has shifted, because the character that says it twice.
Yeah, exactly.
It's Regina.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
obviously Regina is not meant to be nice, so that is fine.
Yes, yeah. I would say, yeah, it's not really something you can hold against the film at all because, like you say, it's just, I was just saying that nowadays I think they probably wouldn't do that unless you were watching like a really, honest comedy, which just showed things as it were. Then you probably have people saying all sorts, but in a kind of like, slightly more accessible comedy, which is what this would have been at the time, they probably wouldn't say retarded. So
they
casually,
wouldn't have that line then.
and then the other thing they have, this is a great one, is that having sex with underage girls is treated as sort of a joke in this.
It is, yeah.
Of course, the coach is having sex with two underage Thai girls who seem to not even be able to speak English at once. And there's a classic line: "Step away from the underage girls."
I pulled these two off each other. Coach Carr, step away from the underage girls.
Which seems to be, it's not like, oh no, this is horrible, this guy's abusing underage women. It's more like, oh, stop it, you coach, what are you up to?
Yeah, I know, I thought that.
And then, okay, this one's another one. Inappropriate sexual harassment comments from the Indian math stork.
Damn.
What?
Rather see you out there shaking that thing.
Now, this is important because there's a relatively popular video on The Big Bang Theory. It's a video essay. It's called Adorkable Misogyny in The Big Bang Theory. And the essential thesis of the essay is that there is a problem, a trope in a lot of particularly American high school films, but obviously in a lot of other American sitcoms, where a character who is deemed to be nerdy is presented as having an essentially, unthreatening masculinity.
Because it's harmless, yeah.
Yeah, and obviously then they make inappropriate comments. And of course, the black guy, well, he's not black, he's Indian. Indian math stork says, I'd like to see you up there shaking your butt.
Shaking
basically.
that thing, he says.
Shaking that thing, yeah.
Rather see you out there shaking that thing.
And obviously that is a sexually harassing comment to make to somebody, but it is played off as a joke. And I think part of that, I think you can make an argument that maybe back in the day, even that comment being made by anybody else would be seen as a joke. But obviously the fact that he is a nerd, and we've seen this since like the 1980s, and there's been this problem even going into the modern day with the Big Bang Theory, which is that the sexism in nerdy communities is deemed as not really a problem because they're not real men or whatever else.
But what's the end result, Michael? Shooting up people in Toronto?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So you can't. Well, I mean, even that thing which I'm referring to, which is that incel killing people in Toronto, even that didn't happen, it would be wrong. And you're right. Yeah, I've seen that video by, I think it's the Pop Culture Detective guy.
Pop Culture Detective.
Yeah. So you linked me to one of those videos, and I watched some more of his videos. And yeah, that's good stuff. You're right. What the Big Bang Theory does do is legitimize that trope of adorkable misogyny, and it is just presented as harmless. And in this movie, again, it's harmless, but like we said, it's in a different era. So definitely. But even if this movie came out today, do you think they'd still use that?
Well, the thing is, the problem
Have
is
things changed that much.
So I've got two thoughts. Number one, I think the fact that the Big Bang Theory still, to some extent, seems to use this idea suggests that it's still something that is slightly socially acceptable today. Having said that, number one, I think Tina Fey is obviously probably more progressive than not. So I think nowadays it's kind of the point where there are still really shitty people who are doing all sorts of problematic things regarding sex and consent and things like that and harassment. But in general, I think nowadays progressives are more likely to be a bit more sort of woke on these issues. So in those days, even a progressive would have had problematic content.
I think a part of it, though, obviously, is making fun of the character, though, for saying that, because it's like, lol, how ridiculous does this nerd look for saying that? So I don't necessarily know if Tina Fey would do that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously.
I can't say.
Yes,
can't make a judgment.
Yeah, it's very possible that you'd still get that kind of joke. But either way, it's a pretty problematic thing because, of course, sexual harassment, even relatively harmless sexual harassment, can of course make women feel a bit uncomfortable, even when it's coming from somebody who isn't necessarily a big masculine macho man like us, Luke.
One of us anyway.
Yeah, true. Yeah, don't put yourself down like that, Luke. You're almost as macho and masculine as me.
Wait, how tall are you, Michael? I forget.
I'm shorter than you. I am.
Yeah, I know, but how?
I'm bang on 6 foot.
Oh, how convenient.
I know, yeah. Well, it's kind of annoying because I always say it, and I kind of like I want to add. I kind of like saying I'm 6'1", not just because it adds a thing, but also because it sounds more accurate. Because it's kind of weird just saying I'm 6 foot. It's like everyone's like 6 foot. What? I don't know. Even though really there's a 1 in 12 chance that you'll be bang on the measurement. I am exactly 6 foot. This one's probably the least problematic. mostly because I think it can be explained as like have an in-universe explanation if you like. It's just the idea that like being a lesbian is the worst thing ever. This is kind of a narrative thing as well, because you've got this whole thing throughout this film of like, well, not throughout this film, but for a significant portion of the film, which is like Regina George spread a rumor about Janice, and she's constantly saying like, don't say it, don't bring it up, blah 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 blah, like really like making sure nobody finds out. And you think it's going to be this massive thing she did, like she set her entire family on fire. And it's literally just she spread a rumor that she's a lesbian, and obviously that's not necessarily a nice thing to do, but it's like not that big of a deal.
I was like, Janice, I can't invite you because I think you're a lesbian. I mean, I couldn't have a lesbian at my party.
Yeah, obviously, we talked about this in the Passion of the Christ episode. 2004 was peak year for evangelical Christianity. And part of the evangelical Christianity, I guess, platform is hating gays.
Yes. So I guess you could say it's kind of like her concern doesn't come from necessarily the idea that being gay is intrinsically bad, but being gay is extrinsically bad because of the fact that society is. That's why I say it's the least legitimate thing. I just thought it was worth bringing up because, of course, you could say. So yeah, but the main things, like we say, was the comment about people being retarded, the implication of having sex with an underage girl, and the implication that's kind of a funny thing, and of course the comments from the which, to be honest, I think the comments from Mr. Adorkable Misogynist is probably the most problematic thing, especially because it has the less.
Well, no, the underage girl thing's the most problematic.
Okay, there we go. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Well, the important thing is we can agree that there are problematic elements, but ultimately, I think you can just say whatever. I mean, you shouldn't say whatever, but you can, you know what I mean. Like, you don't have to let those things impact your enjoyment of the film. Anyway.
Yeah, do you know what? I really love Michael being a SJW, and you do too, picking up problematic elements in all these movies.
It is so much fun because it just, imagine how much less content we'd have if we just, didn't focus on how much things hurt our fifis.
Yes, no, I'm so glad I've got a place to talk about how much I get triggered watching movies, because I don't know what I'd do without this.
I know, yeah.
Do it! Just do it! Yes, you can!